Welcome to the Checkered Shorts Podcast, a podcast of three fraternity brothers reconnected by their love of IndyCar. Join us for grid-rival IndyCar fantasy talk, predictions for upcoming races, and reactions to race day results and all things IndyCar. Let's go racing! All right, welcome back to another episode of Checkered Shorts, back from the warm, sunny beaches of Florida and Jamaica.
Right.
Kind of, took a little bit of a hiatus with the gaps in the racing and the spring break festivities and the anniversary celebration. So, we're glad to be back, happy to be back. The guys look a little tanner than they were on the previous episode. So, give us a little quick highlight of your trips. We'll start with Brian. Give us a little highlight of your trip.
Just a lot of nice relaxation. Nice warm weather. We took a little catamaran ride, had a little private dinner on an island on the resort, and just a lot of really good relaxation time. Did some book reading, which I don't normally do a whole lot, get a chance to do a whole lot of. So read the new AJ Foyt biography, part of volume 1, which is 550 pages, if anybody's interested. If you want to anything and everything about Foyt and IndyCar from the 50s to the 70s, check it out. But no, overall, it's pretty good, other than I brought home a little Jamaican flu with me. So I've been battling that for the last 4 or 5 days.
All right. So you're the resident historian then.
I can take that role.
All right.
Ours was good. It was 80 and sunny. Sat on the beach every day. Was with my in-laws and then my brother and sister-in-law and her family. So they have kids the same age as our kids. So it was pretty awesome. A little hiccup on the way home, but we made it. But no, it was a good spring break. Love it down there. It's Cape San Blas. It's like not high rises and not all that other hoopla that, all some of the other Florida cities have. So it's just beach houses, and you're lucky if you have a family next to you on the beach. So it's pretty cool.
So every race week, Pat Kelly gets to pick the Pat Kelly Landscaping shit pit of the week.
That's right.
And on the way home, he had his own shit pit. With
2 hours in, the transmission to the van started overheating. I'm like, oh crap. And I'm not driving crazy. So pull over, it turns off. Do it again, starts up another 100 miles. So I stopped probably, 8 to 10 times. But we made it home right before the storms hit Indy. I actually drove like under the speed limit for the first time ever on the way home, like 68. I'm just cruising this big ass van. So yeah, definitely the shit pit for sure. So I'll take it. But it's fine.
This is becoming a travel podcast, just like Hinch and Rossi's.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Did you think about that? No, but it was good. How was Indiana, Keith?
Oh, it was good. Got a lot of work done around the house. Got the pool open. Obviously, It's just to look at this point, but it'll be ready to go when we hit that first warm day. So, I did my own landscaping at my own house. Took care of some business and had a good, relaxing staycation, I guess.
Good.
But enough about that. We want to get here. We want to talk about racing. And first thing we haven't hit on after our race reaction, we all sent Brian our power rankings for the week, and then he averages those. And then we give a little comparison to like the IndyCar power rankings. So, Brian, why don't you tell us where we're at on our power rankings?
Yeah. So after race 2, I think it's no surprise that all three of us put Mr. Palou back in the number 1 spot. So, he just kind of separated himself just like he has in the point standings. I know I'll admit it. First time we had a little conversation about Pato and where I had him ranked. But as a group, we brought him up to number 2 after this week's performance. He's very solid, had a good shot there at Thermal. Followed third by Joseph Newgarden, and we'll come back to that in a minute because we have him at number 3 in our power rankings. Followed by Mr. Steady, Mr. Iceman, Scott Dixon. And then kind of, I wouldn't say a surprise of the season, but Christian Lundgaard and what he's done, we've got him in our top 5. Another Arrow McLaren car there, followed by, the next 2 were really close. Next 3 actually were really close together. Kyle Kirkwood ended up in our 6th spot, followed by Scotty Mack, who obviously had a struggle at Thermal, and then Colton Herta at number 8. Those 3 were really locked in tight in our rankings. And then we finish out our last 2 with Felix Rosenquist again, put up another solid performance.
Yeah.
Nothing to completely ride home about, but he's putting himself right there every race. And then again, another person that really impressed, especially in the latter part of the race, was Will Power. And so Will brings in our last spot at number 10. Dropping off our list this time was Alex Rossi. He just missed. He was right behind Power in our rankings for that 10th spot. But Will Power jumps up into our rankings for the first time in 10th.
Yeah, so the big discrepancy when I saw the IndyCar power rankings come out, and then immediately we started texting about it, was the fact that Newgarden was nowhere to be found after a really good finish. You take away running out of gas at St. Pete, and then obviously they didn't run well at Thermal, but really the whole team didn't run well at Thermal, or as well as you might expect. So how does Newgarden slip out of the top 10 in the IndyCar power rankings?
I mean, it's crazy. He's arguably top. What do we have? He's arguably number 2.
He's top 3 for us.
Yeah. So, you can make that argument between Pato and him. Right now, between 2 and 3, pretty easily, he's top 3. To not have him on the board, that's kind of silly. Maybe they just made a mistake and didn't realize it yet.
I would understand that if they had also dropped McLaughlin.
Yep.
But to leave McLaughlin in their top 10, and I'm a Scotty Mack fan, but to leave him in there, but to take Joseph out makes no sense to me.
Nope. Silly. I think one for me that is Lundgaard, who I don't think he was in 9th. So he was 2 weeks in a row. I have him at 9th. I still want to, he's impressing me more, but I still want to see him do the next jump to really become a top 5 guy.
No, he went wheel to wheel with Palou last week.
No, he did. But I want to see more of it.
That sequence was some highlight material for sure. That was exciting. I got up out of my chair during the race.
Yeah,
awesome. Closer to the action. It's almost like being at a race and hopping up off the bench, and you had my undivided attention. That was
some of the best racing. Obviously, we've seen this season, but in the past seasons on road courses, just to go back to back to back to back like that was pretty sweet. And the other one that is Fro, like you said, Dinwiddie. I think he's steadily right there, proving himself to be a top 10 guy, which he always could have been. He's, for goodness sake, he was on Ganassi or won with him. So it's good to see him back mixing it up, being in the top 10 in ours.
I had a really hard time this week, other than Palou. Just because, and I think I've heard it on other podcasts too, that Palou's the only one who's finished in the top 5 in both races.
Yeah.
And so then you've got a bunch of guys who have had a race in the top 5 and then a race outside the top 10. So trying to kind of mix those in and where you put them was not easy. And it, but to move Newgarden where they did, I didn't think that was.
He just finished 3rd. You know what I mean? Yeah. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Well, then even as a team, to maximize the fuel and to finish the race and hold on to that position at St. Pete was a pretty good team victory too. It seemed like they must have used good strategy, but knew where they were at. They were telling them right before, "Hey, you're gonna run out. Coast through, do what you got to do to hold on." I thought it was a pretty impressive performance week 1.
I want to see some mix up though. I want to see, either Dixon do something or somebody take over on Dixon. I want to see the Lundgaard get up to a 3rd. I want to see Scotty Mack. these guys are a full race behind Alex Palou already in points. Somebody has to do something soon.
We were talking about Scotty Mack preseason as the guy that can push for the number one spot and have a real breakout year. It's not the start that they'd hoped for, I'm sure.
He can blame Devlin, but Devlin didn't qualify his car. You know what I mean? Scotty Mack was in that position because Scotty Mack didn't have a very good car to put him back there. So somebody has to be consistent. Or, I mean, if Palou wins 5 races, he just needs the top 5, top 10 out of these guys, and he'll win the championship super easy.
Yeah.
And that's
if he just does what he normally does the rest of the year, it's going to be tough to beat him. You know, I'm disappointed in Herta. I mean, Herta being back in 8th. That finished 2nd in the standings last year. Like, like why do we have him in 8th? I mean, he's stupid talented to be sitting back there in that number.
And then they lost championship points, right?
And they did lose. They lost 10 points for what, an unapproved.
Yeah, they said it was
something.
I think it was Pruitt, Marshall, who said it was like something that they just didn't tear off a sticker type of thing. It wasn't like they're using the push to pass. He's like, it meant nothing to anybody. It's just the way that the rules read that they had to discipline them for it.
Yeah.
Well,
somebody needs to do something.
That Devlin McLaughlin mashup, you know, we can dive into that a little bit because we really didn't talk much about that at all at the post-race reaction. But
if you haven't seen it, go back and look at little Devlin trying to step up to Scotty Mack.
It's pretty funny. Scotty Mack's not a big guy, but he's one of the biggest in the sport. And the little Devlin, I'm telling you, go find a picture of Devlin next to the race car drivers. He might be 5 foot. But yeah, it was pretty good. Pretty good.
I think the best is Devlin's, trying to explain and tell Scotty he was wrong, and Scott just looks at him and goes, "You got to drive through penalty, man. Like, it's not my fault. Like,
right.
Like, you have no argument, dude. Just shut up and say I'm sorry."
Yeah,
I thought it was going to come to blows. I really did.
It was getting pretty heated.
Yeah. And somebody, I read something on Twitter or something like, "Oh, that was all staged." I'm like, no, dude, that was like a reporter's phone recording this. It wasn't Fox News camera, like getting the action. Like, and the last person that would want to see anybody using the F-bomb and the S-bomb and all those other bombs is Roger Penske, who's Scotty Mack's boss on live TV, so definitely not set. I thought it was real. I think it's good for the sport, but somebody's got to figure out something. Or
these guys aren't actors. They got a lot of talent, but they're not actors. So I don't think they could pull that off as a fabricated exchange.
No, but somebody's got to figure out something, or it's going to be boring for the series. It's going to be boring for us. It's going to be boring, bad for the sport if Palou runs away with this thing.
I mean, revisiting thermal, which I think we got plenty of time with this another gap before the next race. There was a lot of good racing in the middle, but that's kind of like what's indicative of what it looks like right now. There's one guy, and then there's all these other guys, and they're battling in the standings, they're battling in the race, but at the front of the race, there's not a whole lot happening. And so some people may say, well, that was a boring race, but when they showed the middle of the pack stuff, or you see Will Power make the number of passes he made after the fact, and you go back and see some footage of that, there was some really good racing taking place at Thermal.
Yeah, I think that's where Fox, and I didn't, obviously, I mentioned this, I didn't get to watch the broadcast, and people missed about 15 laps of it because of stuff that was going on, but I think Fox needs to do a better job of that. Maybe they can split screen it, because you do want to pay attention to what's going on up front, but then you've got to fire back into when you see those passes happening mid pack. You've got to get back in there, because the fans want to see action on the course. Like, when you're there in person, it's really cool to watch them whip around corners and do those things. When on TV, that just doesn't make for such a good show if there's not that side by side racing. So I think Fox needs a better job of showcasing the mid pack racing.
Hey, even if they cut into, something that happened just previously a lap before.
Sure.
Yeah,
because
there are plenty of moments to have those kind of cutaways.
Correct. They have, especially there. There was good racing. I'm still a believer that was a good race in my eyes. Especially if you throw a yellow in there, even better. If you throw 2, way better. The tires I thought were great. But yeah, no, your point. Yes, they can cut in. There was enough boring part of it to, hey, watch this pass type of thing.
Yes.
Well, we heard Hinch and Rossi say on their podcast, Hinch was like, well, we saw the monitor and we saw who was top 5 when the power went out, and when the power came back on, it was the same people. So you really didn't miss anything in those 15 laps. Well, you did back in the pack, you just didn't up front. So
right. And that's I've said it. Road courses do that. I've said in the IndyCar road course, it's a boat race, man. You'll see Will Power, Polo run away with it. That's the bad thing about road course races is these guys are good. It's not a street course. It's even surfaces. It's dudes just in their zone and can run away with it, whether you're in 15th or first.
Yeah, but you made a good point, though, that the tires make a difference. And I thought, I think we mentioned this on the last episode, IndyCar did a really good job this week of finding that good difference between the primaries and the alternate tires, because that can make a difference in a course like this.
That was a true strategy, and that's why Polo won. I mean, if Pato would have saved him, it would have been on then. But that's why Power got up to 6th, is because he was on the new alternates, just because he. So
and then
that's
also
cool.
Pato started on the new alternates, and that's probably how he got out to the lead he had.
Yeah, right.
So I think if you're new to the sport, tires make a big difference in strategy, and I think that's one thing that you'll learn as you watch the series is it's not just about the driver going all out for 10 laps on, and everybody having the same equipment. There's a lot of strategy involved in motorsports, and especially IndyCar.
Well, and then I saw a lot of posts from several of the teams basically just saying it was really hot at thermal and then showing the tires at the conclusion of the race. And for me, the first time I went down to the pits and got to examine even the used pairs that they were still going to be able to use in the race, not completely burnt up pairs, it amazed me the amount of material lost and the amount of material picked up on the tires.
Yeah.
And to see what's caked on them when they're rotating at the speed they are on television, you never have any idea what those tires look like until they come to a stop. And you're like, holy cow. I mean, they're just melted to pieces.
Yep.
That's a good point. So speaking of thermal, we've talked about the good, the bad of that race. There's a lot of conversation now about does it stay in the schedule next year? What are your thoughts, guys? How do you feel? I know, Pat, you were a fan of that race. Obviously, you bought the hat.
I like the course itself. I think it's worth mentioning, IndyCar pays to go to a lot of these tracks. I think that's why they got rid of Texas, because one, they're paying and losing money. They get paid to go to thermal. I think it's $1 or $2 million. They get paid to go to thermal. Thermal is a
showcase. I heard $2 million this morning.
Yeah, so these thermal people want IndyCar to come. It's free not free advertising, but pretty cheap advertising for the people that live there to want to come. I liked the racing. I liked the setup. To me, I was a fan, especially. It just meshed well for me this time. I don't know why. If I was watching on the beach this time because it was a little bit more, is a little cooler or what. But it a few more chords for me this time than it did at the heat races and stuff like that. Which, but yeah, no, that's not a great answer, but I like it.
I like it because I think it's a good TV course, and it could even be better than what it was. There's no obstructions. It's out in the middle of nowhere. Great. Your aerial shots could be outrageous. And, would I ever go? And I know this has been a point of contention for some people. How are you going to get there? Where are you going to stay? How are you going to pay for the ticket? All that kind of stuff. I guess there was a little grumbling going on about that. But for me, I didn't have to pay anything to flip my TV on for what I wanted.
Right.
So especially when it's on network TV, right?
And there were multiple points in the race that got me out of my seat, and so I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
that's my point. I totally agree, Keith. Those are points that I agree with you.
Yeah.
Brian, what do
The
you
only thing I would say is I could see it, and I know that a couple of other people have mentioned this, going back to being a non-points race, and especially because of where it takes place. The weather's going to be nice. Could they throw that, in before St. Pete as kind of a spring training type of warm up to the season? We've talked about how they need something to kind of jumpstart the season and get it going. Maybe this could be a non-points race they use it for sponsor recruitment, right? You've got a lot of rich people. There's a couple hundred houses there that are worth millions of dollars. So if they're looking at using it that way, maybe it becomes that kind of an avenue to making some money. But it throws in there, or it becomes a spot where you can throw it in between St. Pete and the Arlington race next year, so that you don't have that 3-week break. Before as we were getting ready for this, we talked about here we are in the middle of another 3-week break, and then after next week, we're going to be on another one of those, and they need to fill some gaps here somewhere along the line.
I just felt like the week of the Super Bowl and the week after, before we get ready to race at St. Pete, it was like running downhill. And if you're running downhill with that kind of momentum and you stop your feet, you're going to stumble. It's like, what are you doing with this momentum? Just pump the brakes for a gap of 3 weeks.
Not just once, but now twice. You know what I mean? Like, holy smokes. I get it that you're not running every day like NASCAR, but we got to keep it a little bit more consistent. I don't even, after that race, is like, when's the next one? I don't even know. Yeah, that's pretty bad.
I had convinced myself it was going to be this Sunday.
It should be.
Unfortunately, it's not. And unfortunately, we got another week, but it's hard to run up against March Madness. The NCAA tournament that's going to be viewing in that weekend, and so to try to compete with that, and especially if NASCAR is throwing a race on another Fox channel, it makes it difficult. But they've got to do a better job of planning that out, but you got to see what the network's got available, and I think Fox is the right answer. Especially if they can put it on Big Fox on the main network. So they'll get it figured out.
Yeah, I thought there were a multitude of reasons for a drop in viewership. Mm-hmm. I mean, number one, there was so much momentum built up for St. Pete, and the numbers were unexpectedly large.
Yeah, correct.
And then you have the competition on the day of that race with the gap in between, and then you have the hiccup, where you have eyes on the race, and maybe sometimes people join in at certain points in the race. And if you joined in at that point, you probably just turned the TV off.
Yeah. I mean, we had a buddy who did that. Was like, text me, where's the race? I thought it was on today.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, who knows where Thermal is? Like, at least St. Pete. Like, St. Pete, cool. They drive at St. Pete. Oh, cool. Oh, wow, they're on see all those yachts, stuff like that. Like Thermal, like it's a really cool course. But if you say, oh, they're racing at Thermal, like, where the hell is that?
They should tie it to the Coachella thing a little tighter.
Yes.
Not actually the concert, but to the location, because that's very mainstream,
it's
very pop culture.
Yes, same area. 100%. I like where your head's at, Keith. Somebody gets paid to do this stuff, and they should listen to us, I think.
They can pay us. People know where Long Beach is, right? So, 50 years of Long Beach, that's coming up. So there's some history there. People get it. They get it's a California street course, and that'll bring them back.
And I have seen different ads, not just the Pillow, Pato, and New Garden ones. There have been different. I think it's a Pato and New Garden one for Fox. So they are still continuing to bring out new advertisements for the series, which is good. What you said, Denver, they'll figure it out. It's Fox. They're the biggest and the best when it comes to sports. So.
Well, and I think, I heard somebody mention on one of the other podcasts too that, it wasn't just the ratings of the race as it happened, the replays of the race, the YouTube feed, the highlights, like the streaming pieces have been higher or have higher viewership than they've ever had before. So the momentum is still going.
Yeah.
And it gets better.
I'm just itching to add on to it.
Yep.
Yeah.
No. It'd be cool if there's an oval race in there. I mean, as we know, it gets better towards the end, and it really gets some racy. We just gotta hope Flo doesn't run away for everybody's sake. So, yeah. What else we got?
Well, we hit just a little bit on Long Beach. I don't want to get too far into it because we got several episodes prior to the race. But, for those new folks, Brian mentioned it, but there's quite a history there and probably second only to Indianapolis Motor Speedway in the 500. But, I'm a new guy. I watched it last year on television. Give us just a little bit of insight, a preview of what that track's like.
It is. It's historic. This will be the 50th year of Long Beach with IndyCar.
You said consecutive?
I think it's 50 consecutive. I believe that's true. Just a traditional street course. It's going to be a little, concrete walls, tight corners, some long straightaways, but then those 90 degrees. And just the guys really enjoy being there, and then you've got the fountain, and you've got, especially you think back to last year's race with Dixon and what he pulled off on tires and fuel, and then Newgarden and Herta kind of coming together because those were the fastest two in the race. So a lot of history there. A lot of the greats of the sport have won at Long Beach, and so they really get keyed up for that event, and it'll be awesome to watch in a week or so.
Yep, I'm excited.
A shout out to you, Keith. In our Grid Rivals League, you went to the top this week. So
I forgot about it. I'm dead last. I forgot about Grid Rivals.
Would you have Captain Leg on your team?
That would have been negative points.
No, but old Mad Dog Ryan Maddox jumped up to second place. He's right behind you, Keith.
Nice.
So,
nice.
Yeah.
No, I have 4 drivers to fill in for next race.
Yeah, I filled my roster, so
I'm afraid I mismanaged my contract, so I'm going to get off to a good start, and then you're going to see me get in trouble.
No, Grid Rivals is still cool. But again, I forgot about it because it's been 3 darn weeks. It will be 3 weeks. But no, cool things. Next series topics we can talk about. It doesn't have to be on now, but the Chevy versus Honda hybrid. Some issues there, especially. And then, what that looks like here coming in the future is one topic I think we can discuss. And I mean, you guys tell me what else.
Yeah, I think we add that to the list. We got a little bit of a gap to fill. So these are things we can hit on next week. And we want to stay true to form and keep this a short form podcast, something you can casually listen to. And we thank those folks that have listened and come back to listen. And I think we're going to try to attempt to do some little shorts. I'm going to try to start to put together some of those and put them out because they're easily digestible. And so we're going to pull some fun clips that we've had thus far and put them out. And then we also, I think Brian is showing off some swag over here.
Oh, yeah.
So little Prima.
Yeah. Well, little Prima Callum Isle jersey picked up.
I mean, Prima's got to figure it out first. I mean, they've spent a lot of money and they're crapping the bed.
It's tough to get into the series, and they're showing.
I agree.
They'll get there. Don't worry, they've got the money. They'll make it work.
No, I agree. 2 things. Shout out to Willie P. He got me the thermal hat. And 2, if you have not seen, and all the listeners, back when the cutouts of the race was going in and out, Hinch was, they're like, just talk to us. Like, we want to hear you. And so, Evan, Will, they're all talking. And apparently Hinch did what was his name? What's his name?
Christopher Walken.
Yeah, Christopher Walken.
Spot on.
And, dude, so good. So you have to get on like Reddit or something. But so he was just joking around like it would never be aired. Somebody caught it, but it is so awesome. So check it out. It's on Reddit.
I've not seen it. I heard about it, but I've not seen it yet. So.
If you just type in James Hinchcliffe, Christopher Walken's impression, it's badass. It's really, really, really good. That's what I got.
Okay. Congrats
right.
to Jay Fry, former president of
Oh, yeah.
IndyCar, on
Yep.
his new
Yep.
gig with Ray Hall Letterman. So
That's a good.
they need that.
Yep.
That'll be good for them to get some good leadership in there.
Yeah, no, a really good pickup, I think. So we can talk about that too, along with the hybrid and anything else that might come up here in the next few days.
All right. Thanks for joining in, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
See ya.